Welcome, kindreds. It's Jessica. Sorry, I wasn't sure I was gone. Let me know if you can see me and hear me. Welcome. We're going to be talking about the astrology of November and also pulling some cards from the Guardian of the Night Tarot, which I've got here. I feel like I'm a bit bright. It's like our clocks went forward here in the UK last night, and so it feels like it's been dark for ages already now, because it's obviously it means we got more light in the mornings, but it's darker in the night time. So yeah, so Lisa says hello. That's good. That hopefully means that you can see me and hear me, Lisa. So I'm going to be using this deck later on to pull some cards. This is the Guardian of the Night Tarot. But before we do that, we're going to have a chat about the astrology of November. Actually, before I do either of those things, I'm going to have a little sip of tea. So I'm actually drinking Peace Herbal Tea, which my sister bought me last year, I think, from Starchild in Glastonbury. They do loads of really, really gorgeous teas. I've got a witch's brew tea as well from them as well, which is really nice. Oh, hi Kate. Hi Siren. Yeah, so how is everyone feeling since the eclipse? I'm just making a couple of you mods in case we need one, because we did have some a little troll in here last time. So, oh hi Liz. So yeah, how are you guys doing? It was you know, we've been in this eclipse season. When we talked about the astrology of October, it like October seems like it's been such a long month. You know, there's been so much happening. Like I don't know how you've been feeling it in your private, you know, in your personal lives, but like in the world at large, obviously there have been like I think I said, intense. And you know, we were talking about Mars crossing over the South Node, and just a lot of South Node activation and a lot of Mars activation, which can be really like violent, and like we've seen that, haven't we? We've seen that being played out. And so like I'm drinking my peace tea, I'm burning peace incense, I'm trying, you know, whichever way that I can to encourage a peaceful energy, because I feel like, you know, it's really easy to feel completely useless in situations when, you know, we're seeing that people are, you know, innocent people are being killed and things like that. And so it's hard to know what to do. And so I tend to, in those situations, just try and kind of just tune into an energy of peace and just try and feel that energy of peace. But that's been hard. That's been really hard this month, because it has felt so long, and because there's been things that have been like personally challenging, as well as being on the greater world stage situation. So, oh hi, I can see a few more people coming in. Hi Cara, hi Jamie, hi Clara, hi Shah, hi Holly. Yeah, that's nice to see some familiar faces. So yeah, we're going to hang out for a bit and talk about the astrology of November, and then pull some cards about the energy. I do think like November still does look quite intense. You know, things don't calm down that quickly a lot of the time, but I feel like it's not like we are moving out of eclipse season, which I think will help, you know, and Pluto is direct now, which I think will also help. So yeah, Siren says the things going on in the world are particularly hard on empaths, and it's good to find peace within. Yeah, I like for us personally, but I really do feel like that sends out a kind of vibration of peace into the world as well. It does have an impact. Lisa says it's been intense. Yeah, I'm sorry that it has been, and that, yeah, I feel you. It has. I've been feeling like that as well, for sure here. So yeah, it's been a lot, but we are here and we are, you know, doing the best we can with it all. And there are obviously people in the world who are doing a lot worse as well. So, you know, I'm conscious of that situation, and that we have got the kind of privilege to be sat here talking about astrology. But yeah, it's part of what we need to be doing, isn't it? I think, you know, focusing on our spiritual health and just emanating that out into the world. Yeah. Okay. let's just dive into it, I think. So I want to try and find a way, like I'm on my phone again, which you can probably tell because it's long. I haven't figured out how the whole turning it sideways thing doesn't seem to work anymore on YouTube. So we're straight up here. Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you slept well, Siren. But yeah, the moon, I think, and we had a lovely circle yesterday as well, which was really lovely. That meditation, although I suppose you were leading it, so you don't always get to experience it then, do you? But yeah, things like that definitely do. And just, yeah, things like self-care. We talked about that last time as well, you know, like getting rest, getting, allowing ourselves time for quiet, to let ourselves regulate our own nervous systems is really important, because we are really overstimulated, and there is a lot of stimulation as well in November. So that those practices really need to be on point, and if anything, like ramped up a bit as well for November. So yeah, I want to try and find a way where we can do this and I can show you my screen as well, so that I can show you like the chart of the thing so you can see that, because I know lots of you are like learning astrology as well, so it's helpful to be able to see the chart. But I haven't figured out a way to do that. It all looks really complicated. I watched a few videos on how to do it, like using StreamYard and like different things like that, and I was like, oh, I'm really confused now. I don't know how to do that. But I won't give up. I will have a look into it, but that might have to be something for the new year, because I just don't think I've got the headspace to kind of figure it out right now. But yeah, so let's talk about November. So I'm using my honeycomb planner, and I've got like the chart of November, which I've kind of gone through. This is like an overview of the month that you have in the honeycomb. And it shows like the lunations. It's got all of the mundane transits. Like there's a really long list of transits here, and the ingresses and everything on here. So I'm just going to go off this page basically, because everything that's happening in the month, well, I have added a couple of other notes and things like that as well, but all of the information is really on here. So so yeah, we're starting off the month after that eclipse that we had yesterday. We could actually, it was visible here in the UK, although it was quite cloudy, so it was difficult to kind of see it at its, when it was at its peak of eclipse. Like it was only a partial eclipse anyway, it was just kind of like the bottom of the moon was eclipsed. But when it was like at the peak of that, it was really cloudy, so we couldn't see the moon where we were, but we did see you know, you could still see the eclipse portion a little bit later on in the evening as well, which was really cool. We all went out and had a look at that. But yeah, we start in November still kind of in the flow of that Taurus moon. So we're still in that kind of fixed sign energy for Taurus as we move into November. And like the first week and a half of November is very, like, we've got there's like a kind of story is going on here, where we've got the Sun and Mars and Mercury, and they're kind of traveling together at the moment. They're kind of like companions on the road, and traditionally the Sun and Mercury are friends, the Sun and Mars are friends, Mars and Mercury are not friends. So it's an interesting dynamic having these three planets all kind of together and traveling together over the space of this time. So at the moment, as we go into November, we've got all three planets, so Mars, Mercury and the Sun, and they're all in Scorpio. So we're in that Scorpio fixed water energy, that really kind of like deep well of emotion. And that's what a lot of what has been stirred up in October is that kind of Scorpio. Like Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. In modern astrology, Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. So we've had a lot of Mars and Pluto activations. You know, we've been having squares with those planets, and Mars is very much an aggressive planet, and like sometimes that can be a good thing, because like in our lives we need to be able to move, to change, you know. Like if we didn't, Mars gives us like the impetus to do that. It's got that fiery impetus to do that, but we don't have we want that, but we don't want it to get like out of control, which happens sometimes then. And when we've got like Mars and Pluto kind of coming together, that can often look like a kind of escalation of force, which, you know, that is what we've been seeing on the news. So, and perhaps, you know, like what we see externally happening in the world, you know, there is that same drama is also going on within us, and like in our own worlds. But because of our own like personal charts, you know, our personal makeup, our charts, like for me, the way that I work with astrology is like a kind of in a semi-fatalistic way, I suppose, in that I see our astrology chart as being like our natal chart as being a set of like potential. It's like our DNA. This is how I describe it. It's like we're born with this DNA when we come into the world, and that is like fixed when we come in. But certain factors, environmental factors, have an impact on that. So if we you know, exactly the same with our DNA, certain things can get switched on or switched off according to what we do. And that's one of the reasons why I find working with astrology so powerful, is because when we know about these things and we know our own charts, we can like, well, you can kind of see things coming, see potential problems coming. You can also sort of see what might bring you the most peace and harmony, so you can kind of lean into those aspects as well. You know, you can do, traditionally they would have had a system of remediation as well, where you can like kind of look at things in your chart that are a little bit difficult, like because we all have difficult things in our natal charts, and then you can adapt, you know, you can remediate or try and like mitigate some of those things there. But yeah, so what we're seeing on that kind of outer stage in the world now is also happening to some extent and affecting us differently according to our own kind of planetary makeup, our own planetary DNA kind of thing. So where Scorpio is for you in your chart, you know, like what house it is in, if you know that, then you can kind of look there and see, this is where this is playing out for me, you know, in my chart. And that would be very different if it was like in a career focused part of your chart. It would look very different if it was in like a relationship part of your chart. Yeah, but it's that dynamic between Taurus and Scorpio as being those fixed signs. We've got fixed water and fixed earth kind of opposite each other. So oh, okay, Lisa, that's no problem. I'm going to just do like a general reading, I think. I don't think I'm going to be able to do individual readings today just because of time. My husband's actually not here at the moment, and so I've kind of said to the kids, just carry on, entertain yourselves, and we will, I won't be too long. So I'm hoping to not keep it really long, although I'm obviously chatting already. So the replay will be up though if you want to get the astrological information, and then I'll do like a general reading for the month as well. Yeah. Simon says there's an abundance of light being sent through the planet. It's shedding light on all the darkness negative. Yes. Yeah. And that is the work of Scorpio. The work of Scorpio is like, is shadow work in a lot of senses. It's like the deep, the underworld. When I think of Scorpio as being like a deep well, and the well that is the connection to the underworld, and we can dive into there and receive insights, but very often it's difficult to do that because it's scary, you know, to kind of go there. So in fact, one of the cards from the Rebel, what's it called, the Sacred Rebels Oracle, always makes me think of that kind of Scorpio energy, and it talks about diving for light, and it's when you have to go like deep into yourself, deep into that kind of unconscious, and find those hidden things which actually, you know, sometimes they're painful things, sometimes they're great things which have been hidden. There's lots of treasure down there as well, like when you think of wells having treasure, or lakes, and especially like in Celtic cultures, there's often great treasures would be passed into bodies of water because that was the passage to the underworld. So we would give those things into those places to say, this is, you know, I'm giving this over to the other world now, kind of thing. So yeah, that kind of Scorpio depth is very much activated. And then when we think we've got the sun there, so we've got the sun kind of shining a light on that. We've got Mars there, Mars, traditional ruler of Scorpio, kind of like really emphasizing Scorpio and strong and kind of encouraging that. Like Mars, as well as being like kind of aggressive, is also very much about like expelling things, like casting. When we think of Mars in a medical astrology perspective, Mars conditions are things that like kind of push things out of the body. You know, they quite, like fevers are very Mars, you know, because it's got that kind of heat and I'm kind of burning this out. Or anything with this like inflammation is very Mars as well. So yeah, it is. Siren says Scorpio is good at going where others fear to tread. Yes, and like Scorpio is also very like dissecting of things and getting kind of to the heart of it and bringing it out. So it is like, I think I talked about that. I feel like I've talked about that. Almost like needing to kind of like operate on it and kind of like be really precise and be like, this is where the problem is, and I'm gonna cut this problem out and get rid of that. Cutting is a very Mars thing as well, removal of things that are like no longer needed. And so that's what's been happening, that's what we've been doing. But so yeah, we've got Mars, we've got I'll try and stay on the same thoughts. We've got the Sun, we've got Mars, and then we've also got Mercury there. So Mercury being that kind of like quick communication planet, often to do with like the air element, to do with like ideas and thoughts, and are also very like adaptable and changeable planet. So when we've got those three energies together, we've got a tendency to perhaps like be very quick about being too aggressive, or about kind of like removing things that perhaps we shouldn't have removed. It's a bit too like cutting as well, you know, which can make us feel really like raw and sore. And those are words that I think as we kind of slide into November, we're still kind of licking our wounds from that Taurus eclipse. And like, you know, it's not all doom and gloom. There are some signs of like some good things as well. Oh, no problem, Lisa. That's fine. I hope you have a lovely day. I was going to say evening, but I think it's a day for you. So yeah, we've got all of those together in Scorpio, and that is happening up until Mercury moves into Sagittarius on the 10th of November. So from the 1st to the 10th of November, all of those three planets are in Scorpio. And then when we get to the 10th, they start one by one to start crossing over into Sagittarius. And so the story kind of continues through November, the story of those three travelers of Sun, Mercury and Mars. But instead of them being in Scorpio, they move into Sagittarius. And like as it is in astrology, when we look at the signs, the order that they're placed in, it's like the sign that comes next is almost like an antithesis of the sign that comes before it. It's like this sign, like Scorpio, is about the very deep, the very sort of hidden. And then Sagittarius is very much about the like world exploring and truth and questing. And it's a lot more optimistic. And so I feel like there is definitely like a more optimistic vibe towards the end of the month than there is at the beginning of the month. And like there's other things going on here too, which I think look really lovely as well. Like Venus is moving into Libra. So Venus at the moment is in Virgo, which is the sign of her fall. So Venus is not usually very powerful in Virgo, not very sort of strong or at home. But then when Venus moves into Libra, that is the sign, that is Venus's sign, you know, and that is also the kind of Venus as morning star sign when she rises after the being in the dark, and she rises kind of resplendent and ready to dispense justice. It's the aspect of Venus that is aligned with the Justice card in tarot. It is that kind of like ethical, fair-minded, moral, still very much loving of like peace and also of beautiful things, but not so much the other sign of Venus, which is Taurus, not so much the sensual and the kind of like body, not so much the individual pleasure either. The Venus, Libra Venus is more focused on outside concerns, on the outside world. So I feel like Venus moving into Libra like that is going to at least bring a kind of counterbalance to the, you know, to the violence that has been going on. Venus being very strong then in Libra is going to be able to exert some influence on that and help to kind of smooth things out. Oh, hi Millie. And bring some sense of justice and like also like a feeling of order, because I don't know about you, but it's felt like kind of out of control, like everything's kind of spiraling out of control, and it's kind of frightening to see that. So I think Venus in Libra, which is happening, let me tell you these dates as well. So Venus moves into Libra on the 8th of November. So, you know, quite early on in the month, and then starts kind of making aspects of some of the other planets. Yeah, through the month. Let's have a look. So before she moves into, on the 3rd of November, I've looked at highlighted that a little bit as well. On the 3rd, Venus is making an opposition to Neptune, and I think that day could actually feel like a little bit of a light relief in what has been kind of a difficult time, because like it's not the best day for kind of doing productive stuff, but it will be good for kind of for daydreaming, and perhaps for just taking a little time out for kind of like a bit of pleasure. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Siren. Yeah, I totally forgot to go in and remind people that this was happening today. So thank you for doing that. So yeah, we've got that Venus story happening as well. So she is not traveling. She's kind of like behind the rest of the party, kind of bringing up behind them. But she's kind of almost like mopping up the mess, you know. She's going to bring that sense of justice, I feel like, to what has been going on, or at least some respite, some salve, some kind of order. That's what I feel like as well to that situation. So let's have a look what other transits I've kind of highlighted here. So I told you about that one on the 3rd of November. The 3rd of November as well, we've also got a Sun Jupiter opposition on the 3rd of November. And like, even though Jupiter's retrograde, I think that like a Sun Jupiter making connections with each other is usually like a nice vibe as well. So yeah, I think that 3rd of November should feel just like a little bit easier. Some of the other things that have been going on, you know, in what's been going on lately. The 6th of November, I put a little, oh actually no, let's talk about the 4th first, because the 4th is interesting. Yes, Clara, yeah. Good for Venus bringing some order to this mess in the world. Yeah, she's really trying. And I always try to follow Venus's, like Venus is my ruling planet. So I'm more interested in Venus's actions than in some of the other planets. But also, I see what Venus is doing as like an indicator of what the goddess energy in the world is doing. So like I don't necessarily see all the other planets as male, or just the moon is female and the rest of them as all like male gendered planets. But I feel like Venus is the kind of most prominent goddess of the planets. So by watching her action, we can see like what the divine feminine is kind of wants us to do, is trying to do at the moment. And so by aligning ourselves with what Venus is doing, we're doing the goddess work in that way. So yeah, like at the moment we're kind of harvesting still. We're still in that Virgo harvesting vibe. But as we move into Libra, we will be more like, okay, so this is what's been going on. This is like an atrocity and this can't happen. This is going to be, you know, we need to do this. We need to put these things in place to kind of make balance. You know, Libra is very balanced. You know, that is literally the sign of Libra. So yeah, I feel like that's what she wants us to do. She wants us to stay balanced as well. Like we talked about that at the very beginning, you know, bringing ourselves into balance, because when we do that, we can kind of let that filter out into the world as well. Yeah, Venus also spreads love. For sure, yeah. Charles says, this sounds like it's going to be a much better month for the preschool class. They've been on. Yeah, I hope so. Like, you know, they pick up, you know, the astrology affects us all as soon as we're born into this world, you know, so we're all kind of in this vibe. But yeah, I think there are definitely moments, or definitely like there's a counterbalance this month, whereas last month it was very much like hard, intense. Yeah. And yes, definitely, Simon said about self-care routines, definitely bring those things into place, because that is how we can get ourselves in balance, isn't it? That's how we can try and protect our own peace and keep ourselves in that place. So yeah, that's definitely very, very important. So yeah, all that first kind of first part of the month up to about the 30th. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to talk about the 4th of November, and I interrupted myself and got off point. So on the 4th of November, Saturn is stationing direct. So Saturn has been retrograding for, was it March? I can't remember, but it's a long time. You know, it's months that Saturn has been retrograding for, and now has turned direct in Pisces. Almost came out of Pisces, but didn't quite, and is now going to pass over that whole area that has just been retrograding. So we've got, when Saturn does that, we've got that opportunity to kind of like really go over that old ground again, that kind of structured ground. I also think that Saturn quite often, when we're looking like mundane astrology in that chart, I feel like Saturn quite often can represent the kind of the establishment as well. So there's sometimes a bit of like pushback for like order, but like kind of in the, because we want to retain our power kind of situation. Like Pluto also definitely can indicate that kind of like power play, and definitely like the reason we call plutocrats is that connection with Pluto, you know, it's like the people with a lot of power are those kind of Plutonian people. But the Saturnian is more like, we need order, we need structure, we need things to kind of be as it's supposed to be. And as Saturn has been retrograding, we've kind of lost that structure, has kind of been eroded. Well, because it's in Pisces, I've been talking about it being almost like dissolved. So like the structures of things as we knew them have been dissolved. And now Saturn, still in Pisces, is now going to go back over that space again. And I feel like it might almost be like a tide coming in of to like bring some structure back, but that structure is necessarily going to need to be more fluid, you know, that mutable Piscean whole world thinking, holistic thinking energy, that all is one energy. And so if we can like lean into that Piscean, it's very ideological and very heart centered, but also like in medical astrology, Pisces is connected with the feet, so it also needs to be like grounded in reality as well. So like, yeah, practices that are like good for our heart, also good for our feet, and grounding I think will be really helpful in rebuilding that new structure. It's footwork. We need to do footwork to put things in place, structures in place that are going to be supportive to us and which are going to make us feel balance, be able to bring that kind of balance together. And yeah, so that's happening on the 4th of November. Also on the 4th of November, we've got a jolt of energy where we've got Mercury in Scorpio, which is opposite Uranus in Taurus. So in those two fixed signs, like Uranus has also been in Taurus for years now and has been churning up that Taurus ground. And when we think about Uranus, we're thinking about that kind of electrical, sudden change making energy. And Mercury is like the kind of little brother of that, kind of is a bit electrical change making kind of energy. So when we get like an opposition of those two, it can be like, oof, you know, and there's something that is going to be something unexpected is going to happen. And probably, you know, that's going to be like some sort of news because it's Mercury related as well. So yeah, sorry, Maria, I think it might even be mine, although it's not telling me that it's going in and out. Like people are saying they're having problems with the connection, and I think perhaps it is my internet connection. I'm actually getting a new internet connection at the beginning of November, around the 3rd, which is maybe not ideal. Although, yeah, kind of dreamy, but not good for communication on that day, really. So hopefully it will go as it's supposed to go, but yeah, it might not. But yeah, hopefully that means if it does work, or we manage to get it working by next time, it should be a more reliable live connection. So I'm sorry that it's not working very well. Yeah, so all of that is going on. We've got this kind of change energy, some news. I also noted for Moonwise Goddesses, will be interested in this, the 6th of November, we've got Venus in Virgo making a trine to Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto is Hades, you know, is god of the underworld, and currently in Capricorn and now direct. This is one of the first transits that Pluto is making since it's turned direct. So like direct action planets kind of usually express in a more benevolent way, but you know, we are still talking the god of the underworld here. But it's like the kind of story is going according to how it should go, rather than the story kind of like being confusing or backwards, which sometimes happens when we've got retrograde planets. But when we've got Venus making a trine to Pluto, I feel like that is definitely activating the kind of Persephone energy. And we're working with Persephone in my membership at the moment. So I was like, okay, 6th of November might be an interesting one. And then, you know, that's something that we can kind of feel over the coming days as well. Yeah. So let's skip, because we're already half an hour in. So we'll kind of jump to the new moon. So the new moon on the 13th of November. And this is kind of like the last, we're kind of at the ends of those 3 travelers being in Scorpio at this point, you know, because Mercury has already moved out of Scorpio by this time, and then soon the Sun and Mars will be crossing over as well and going into Sagittarius as well. So 13th of November, the new moon is going to be opposite Uranus again. So I feel like it's going to be kind of spicy, is what I've written on the thing. Unexpected. There's going to be stuff coming out probably like in the news again that is going to be like disruptive things. And so we're going to really need to focus on self-care and on ourselves, bringing that Venus peace energy in during that new moon. And then things start to shift then after that. And as the planet, as I say, those three kind of the story planets of this last month and going into November move into Sagittarius. Then the Sun moves in on the 22nd of November and Mars follows on the 24th of November. And we have that Sagittarian, and Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. So when we've got a sign that is ruled by a benefic planet, then it usually feels easier. And I feel like that is going to be true of the end of the month. It's not like all of the stuff that's been going on is just going to disappear, but there shouldn't be so much like new information, new concerning information coming out, or like things being kind of thrown at you that kind of feel unexpected and unwanted, you know. So it's that this Scorpio energy has been very kind of like skeleton in the closet feel, and with Sagittarius it'll be more like the cards are on the table. It's not like it's not so secretive as it has been in the kind of Scorpio season, as we've been in Scorpio season. Yeah, so what else did I highlight as a thing? So on the 18th of November, so jumping just a little bit backwards, the Sun still in Scorpio at this point is making a conjunction to Mars. So Sun and Mars both in Scorpio. I think that day could be potentially, it's like the kind of last hurrah of that kind of Scorpio thing. So we might see, especially like we might see escalation in conflict on that day. Yeah, which is obviously not good. Yeah, and then so as the end of the month we get to sort of 22nd, 23rd, 25th of November, those planets are starting to move into Sagittarius. They're also making, so the Sun, when it moves into Sag, almost straight away makes a connection with Saturn. So we've got a Sun-Saturn square happening, and so that's like not when we have the Sun and Saturn, they can be, it's a tense energy, but Saturn's now direct. I feel like I'm feeling hopeful about that. And then a couple of days later, Mars makes a square to Saturn, which I'm feeling less hopeful about. But I feel like maybe the Sun, it might seem like there's some kind of progress being made, or perhaps some kind of peace agreement even being made. And then a couple of days later when Mars squares Saturn, I feel like it's going to be like, actually no, you know, things are not going to be resolved as easily perhaps as we think they are. Yeah, and then on the 27th we've got Mercury in Sagittarius, which is squaring Neptune. So I feel like that day is probably it's also the day of the full moon, which I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. So Mercury is the ruler of the moon, because the moon's in Gemini, the full moon's in Gemini at that time. So that day, when we have Mercury, who's all like about communication, and then opposing Neptune, who's all very much about the kind of deep depths, it can be, there's lots of ways that can play out. Like sometimes it plays out as really interesting insights that we receive from the depths, so we can get that kind of a really good day for like divination and things like that, especially with it being on the full moon as well, you know. So we've got the moon bringing that energy of like seeing the things that are normally hidden at the full moon, you know. So that could be really good for divination. But what it can also be is like Neptune can kind of like muddy the waters, and so the communications that we receive can be like unclear as well. So just be aware of that. That's something to just kind of be like, okay, so if somebody tells you something on that day, perhaps don't take it at face value. And definitely don't like make long-term plans based on any information you receive on that day. Just kind of take the information and park it for a little while, and then be like, I'll just come back to that when I've got a little bit more clarity on the situation, when that Mercury-Neptune conjunction is no longer in force. Yeah, and on the 29th of November, Venus is crossing over the South Node. So we talked a lot about the South Node last time. The South Node is kind of like the exit point for the energy out of the universe. It's kind of like the drain, you know. So when planets cross over the South Node, it's almost like we get a drain of that planetary force. So I think that day will be especially for us like goddess people, it might be difficult. So if you are going to plan something in to support yourself, then it would be really good to do something on that day, on the 29th, or just like do nothing if you can on that day, on the 29th. I haven't checked what day it is, actually, like what day of the week it is, to see how possible that's going to be. But yeah, Venus going over the South Node is going to be like a loss of those Venus values, or like a loss of the ethics and the balance and the order. You know, that's not something that is going to be fun necessarily. But let's have a look at that full moon. So the full moon on the 27th in Gemini, and I actually feel optimistic about this full moon. It's the first lunation for, it feels like quite a while, where I've been like, oh, okay. I feel like there's like, yes, you know, there's still a lot of conflict around. We've still got Mars very much activated. We've still got some tricky transits and things, but it's active, you know, we've got Mercury there in the sign of the full moon so Mercury at home in Gemini, it's a Gemini moon, and it's also trining the North Node. And I feel like, yes, you know, it is opposing Mars. No, it's not opposing Mars. Why does it say that on there? Oh yeah, no, it would be, wouldn't it? Because it is in Gemini and Mars is in Sagittarius. So yeah, it is. Yeah, so it's conjunct my natal Mercury. It's actually opposing Mercury. So Mercury's going to be in the opposite sign while this full moon is happening. But when we've got a lot of mutable energy, we've got all this like kind of Mercury, Gemini and Sagittarius energy, it can feel very exciting. It can also feel very busy. So when we're getting into that second part of the month story, there's a lot of this Sagittarius action, and we've also got this moon. It can be very tempting to be almost like doing too many things, being like, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to learn this, I'm going to sign up for this course, I'm going to do this. And it does feel optimistic, and that is like, it's great. I'm here for it, for feeling more optimistic when things have been kind of difficult. But it is it's easy to kind of get sucked into kind of doing busy work, and I feel like we really do need to focus on staying centered and grounded, because when there's a lot of mutable energy, the tendency is to pull away from being centered and grounded and just be kind of like wildfire here, there and everywhere kind of thing. And sometimes setting off fires as well, you know, it's like pulling everything out of drawers, and you know, like just making a kind of when you get all excited about doing something, and then it's like, oh, I haven't actually got the energy to see this through. We haven't got that kind of fixed energy to see a project through. So, you know, it is a good time to maybe just like have fun as well, to like make connections with people and just spend some time with people who you resonate with and who you feel like are interesting. And Gemini's always got a kind of playful vibe as well, and Sagittarius too has got like a playful vibe as well, you know, not quite as like youthfully playful as Gemini, but more explorative, adventurous, you know, it's got that kind of feel to it. So yeah, I think that full moon could be a nice one, especially like if mutable signs are strong in your chart. But just be aware that you might get pulled in too many different directions. Be aware of your energy, and that your energy is not getting kind of like scattered and squandered. That is the kind of the thing to watch on that full moon. Yeah, so what else did I write? Yeah, Yeah, so 17th and 20th, the Sun is making some aspects before leaving Sagittarius. did talk about the Sun square Sun, and then the Sun squaring Jupiter, and then Mars squaring Jupiter. We did talk about that, so that's fine. That was kind of like a major thing that I pulled out. Yeah, I mean, there's always so much, isn't it? And you don't know, that's what's so interesting about it, is that you don't know how these things are going to play out. You can just kind of say, this is this planet, and it's making this relationship with this planet, and these are the signs that are involved. And like, if you know your natal chart, you can also look at the houses that are involved, and then you can kind of make a best guess, and then you evaluate. Then you can kind of see, okay, so it played out like this. And that's what it's all about, is like looking for those patterns, looking for those connections, so that when things like that happen again, when you get those kind of activations again, you'll be like, okay, maybe it's this. And if you're interested in that, like, I love listening to the astrology podcast when they talk about, like, they do predictive kind of mundane astrology like this, but they do it more as like a conversation. So there'll be like 2 or 3 different astrologers talking about the things, and then at the beginning of the next month they talk about the last month and kind of like what has actually occurred according to the astrology. And it's really, really interesting. They're long. They're really long. It's like kind of 3 hours sometimes, but well worth listening to. So yeah, how is that all feeling? Simon says, it sounds like things are coming to a head, negotiations and talks aren't easy, but a start. Yeah, I think, I don't think that there's not going to be resolution in this month. I think that Venus in Libra is definitely going to, I think perhaps there'll be more pressure on, for a ceasefire. You know, there's going to be more pressure for peace. There's going to be more impetus for peace this month. But whether that will actually happen, I don't think so, because we've still got we've still got a very activated, hot Mars, you know, being in a fire sign, just come out of his own sign, coming out of his own sign in Scorpio, and then being in a fire sign is a hot Mars and a kind of like wild Mars in a way. So yeah, I don't think resolution in November, but yes, talks, and I think an increasing pressure from, or an impetus, like I say, for peace from perhaps from outside the situation as well. And definitely for us, like if we focus on that peace within us and finding that balance for ourselves as well, you know, because there will be conflict happening for us in our private lives as well, like we talked about at the beginning of this too. So, you know, we're all working with these energies, more so or less so according to what's happening in our own natal charts, but definitely still, you know, we're all in this same energetic bubble. So it's affecting us all definitely to a certain degree. And like, yes, if you've got Scorpio, then, you know, all this stuff is kind of happening in your sun house. And so, yeah, it definitely affects us more or less, but it's affecting us all. Okay, so let's pull some cards. Like I said, I'm going to use the Guardian of the Night Tarot. I've been really liking using this while I've been in Scorpio season. To be honest though, I use this deck a lot. I think I only got it last year, and it already feels like it is one that is being just, it's like a workhorse for me already. I use it so much. And sometimes, like, it's funny, even though I've used it a lot, there's still sometimes I pull the cards and I'm like, oh yeah, I'd forgotten what that animal is on the cards, because some of them are not like native animals for here. Does anyone have any like questions as well about the astrology? I know I sort of spat some dates at you. But yeah, the sort of overall feel, I think, is starting off kind of tense and moving towards more optimistic, I feel like, as we go through the month. Don't see resolution for the world stage this year, but on a personal level, it could happen by year end, depending on individual situations. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, isn't it? Because we are all dealing with different stuff, but I feel like our own personal stuff is usually easier to resolve, because we can bring that level of personal awareness to it and be like, actually, I don't want to be in conflict in my personal life, and so I want to bring peace, and we can find ways to like lean into there's definitely a peaceful influence coming into this to this time period, so we can definitely bring that in. We can bring that in mindfully into our own interactions. I have shuffled these already, but I just felt like I needed to. Okay, so I'm going to do 3. I'm going to pull 3 cards, and what we've got Ace of Cups. Okay, so that's lovely. That's a really like positive new beginning, especially like like emotional start as well. Like when we think of cups, we think about emotions. We've got the sun on there as well. So I feel like that's bringing in that idea. We've got the sun and the moon actually. So perhaps that's saying like when we get to that full moon, that Gemini full moon, we've got that that hopeful, we've got definitely an element of hope coming up for us in November. Oh wow. And then we've got the Magician. Okay, so that's exciting. So the Magician is the Gemini, is the Mercury card. So we've talked a lot about Mercury. So perhaps we can lean into those kind of more mercurial influences. We can take our, exactly what we were just saying actually, like we have a lot more power at our disposal, not on the world stage, but in our own personal lives. And we can also, what Siren said, yeah, we could be aware of conflict within ourselves, which is something to be aware of. Yes, definitely. And like we've got tools. That's what this card is showing us. So we've got the tools to do that. And like I love the raccoon on this on here as well, because it's so like, they are scrappy animals, you know, they don't just, they're not docile. And so I feel like it's like saying, yeah, Mars, Mercury, not usually friends, like I was saying, but perhaps we can bring that Mars and Mercury together to like give us a little kick up the bum to actually do some magic, do some stuff, try some things, you know, like I was saying with Mercury and with Gemini, it's like we want to have some fun with things as well. Bring that energy of being like a little bit more playful. Don't be so concerned about like, oh, what if this happens, what if this happens. It's like, no, we're gonna try things now. That's what we can do. We can try things now. And then what else have we got here? Okay, yeah, so we got 5 of Wands here. So, you know, that is that energy of kind of conflict there with the 5 of Wands. It can be kind of like, when you feel like it looks like that beaver there is like fighting against the tide. And like, it does feel like that sometimes, like if we see that tide as being kind of like that Scorpio, sometimes it feels like it's almost like we're getting overwhelmed, you know, we've got these waves coming up and they're overwhelming us and kind of dragging us into situations that we didn't necessarily see coming, or we didn't think, you know, we were like, oh, I was going to do this here now, and now it's all kind of not worked out. Things are not going as I planned they would be, because things seem to be more like out of control, like we talked about, you know, it's like things are not as predictable as they have been for quite a long period of time now. Things are we're living in interesting times, as they say. So, you know, we are having those energies kind of going on for us. But I'm actually going to read what it says, because she normally writes some really cool things about the animals that are like a lesson. So let's have a look what she says for that 5 of Wands. I'm loving that Magician as well. I pulled that quite a few times this month already. So 5 of Wands, you know those days when you wake with a plan only to throw it in the garbage because apparently the universe didn't get the memo. So that's what it feels like, isn't it? It feels like we're kind of, you know, swimming against the tide almost. Your day is spent putting out fires, dealing with things that seem to have popped up out of nowhere. And just as you think you have everything done, something else arises to steal you away. You may experience one of those days that leaves you feeling as though every person you encounter has a different opinion and no one can seem to agree. So you've got that general like idea of conflict kind of going on. Yeah. The 5 of Wands implies that you will discover some drama due to petty debates, demands, or just life. If you want to look on the bright side, this may be an excellent opportunity to get some outside perspective or slow down. The idea of a beaver working tirelessly to create a home while contending with the rough waters came to mind when making the 5 of Wands. I just thought about this poor creature being at the mercy of something so overpowering and uncontrollable, yet at the same time unfettered and focused on staying on task. And that is what it can feel like when we feel like we're in this world of just like all this stuff's happening and I don't have any control over it. But what is the beaver doing? The beaver's focusing on just on creating its own home. You know, we don't have to solve world peace. The beaver is a wise master builder who offers us the wisdom of constructing boundaries that will ensure that we stay on task. And we're definitely going to need our personal boundaries this month. Like the dams they build, you may need to slow down a bit, practice a little restraint, and not let every impulse or desire to act break through. Yeah, interesting. So it's almost like putting like a dampener on that Mars and bringing more of that like positive Saturn quality into it as well, like putting some structures in place which are supportive to us, putting some routines and rhythms, especially regarding our health and just getting our nervous systems. Because when we've got Sagittarius and Gemini active, that is a aggravation of our nervous systems. And so just finding ways to keep calm, keep balanced is really, really necessary. Yeah, and some keywords it's got is construction, boundaries, determination, which I think like links in with this Gemini, Mercury, magician as well, creativity, and having fortitude as well, which is like not kind of pretending that everything's okay, but just being strong and boundaried in ourselves. Yeah. As Simon said, I've been learning the last month to take the mental health breaks. Yeah, and like I have to keep learning this all the time, again and again. It's like, I can just keep doing this. I can do this. It's like, no, I need to assert my own boundaries. But what I'm like, so yes, you know, we've got that energy. We've also got that Saturn going direct. And I feel like there will be a boundaries coming back into play is very, very much a force of this month. But we've also got this like gentle Ace of Cups energy, which is going to help us to be more hopeful as well, you know, because it has felt like, I don't know how you guys have been feeling, but it's felt hopeless at times over October. So having hope is actually something that is really lovely to see. And then this I'm very excited about, because it's an indicator that we can bring our own power, our own agency into the situation. Yes, we can't, you know, like we can't solve bigger world problems, but we can work on our own homes. We can work on our own selves. We can work on bringing balance and boundaries and self-care and ethics. Those Libra Venus values into our interactions, whilst also being playful with it and having fun and using our magic as well. You know, like the magician is very much a card of like, go out there and do the magic. And like we are working, if you're in the circle of kindreds, we're working with the witch's hat rune, which is basically the magician card of the runes. So, you know, we've definitely got this, we've got more agency than we realize. And so we work with that. Yeah. So I think that is it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm gonna have a quick sip of tea. My peace tea, which is hopefully bringing me into balance. I'll read you the ingredients actually. So I know the chat is a little bit behind. So it's got chamomile, lime blossom, lemon balm, passion flowers, goticola, rose petals, lavender, elderflowers, malva flowers, nettle, rosemary and aniseed. So there's a lot of stuff in here and it's delicious, but it is very soothing. So if you can find something that you soothing and also balancing, grounding, footwork in this month and magic. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon, and probably for a little bit longer while I figure out how to turn this off.